Gentlemen, my mic was muted. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to some Friday Night Overwatch here for Faceit League, and of course, here with our second game of the season so far with myself, Huntertain. Of course, joined every time with Dexatron. And Dex, this is a look at two teams right here, Boop Troop and InControl. Two teams we unfortunately didn't get to see a lot of last season, but both of them managed to stay within the Masters tier, Boop Troop specifically fighting through promotion relegations to stay in their spot. And now these two teams hoping to have a good start to the season because looking back at their last season wasn't exactly a bright spot.
Yeah, and you kind of already mentioned it right there. Boop Troop, a team that me and you, hey, let's be honest, we never cover them. That's on us. That's why we wanted to get them early on this season. But Boop Troop, like you said, promotion, relegation, and when you reached out to them, they basically said like they did not like their team at the end of last season. Tried a whole bunch of new people, a whole bunch of new faces on this lineup. This is their first game. They had their first game rescheduled against Daybreak, I believe it is now, not Dreamlight anymore. That one is rescheduled to tomorrow, so this is their first game of the season. On the other side, InControl, a team that me and you saw a couple times, was fighting for one of those last spots to get into the playoffs, just missed out, I believe, by one late loss that kind of killed them there. However, the majority of that team did come back, so I do expect that it should be a little bit of a better performance from them at the start of the season. However, it didn't get off to the right start they were looking for against Alternate. They didn't win the first map, but that was all that they could really say they were able to win there. They got reverse swept after that. Had a couple key standout players, had a couple key strugglers as well, but hey, a lot of time between game one and game two now, and some time to VOD.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair, Alternate was one of those playoff teams that ended up having a pretty good run overall. They ended up going to the lower bracket, won a couple of good games or two. So obviously a team that has experience has obviously had success with winning as well. But it is a scenario for them to bounce back against a Boop Troop squad that is also in a bit of a weird situation right now. Obviously, roster mania has affected a lot of teams, and Boop Troop is one of those that was a little bit affected in this situation. But Dex, we took a look at this team, and we actually recognized quite a few of these players from our own experiences in good old grassroots CGL. And I'm excited to look at this team, but at the end of the day, two of the people I was really told to look out for, which is Jeremy, who currently is sitting on the sub bench, so we're going to see whether or not they're going to be able to get any play and when that might happen. But of course, Mari as well, currently sitting in the lineup, if I am not mistaken. Hunter, are you mistaken? I am.
Yeah, they are.
I am not mistaken. Look at me. Look how smart I am. But that's what we're really looking out for in the situation right here. And with a squad like Boop Troop, they are in this very unique situation, I feel like. Where obviously the expectations from how last season went, they're out the door. They are basically starting brand new, fresh, trying to make this happen. If they can go into a team like InControl, who definitely had a better season than them last time, I think they could come off to a very good sense of momentum.
Yeah, and on the other side, I was told to really watch out for that DPS line here for InControl Night. That consists of Benevolence, Mickman, and Kaori. And I will say this, I did go back and watch their series against Alternate. Got a lot of information from that. Benevolence might be one of the best players on this roster, in my opinion. One of the best, a really good hit scan player there, played a really good Soj, cast, even pulled out Tracer for a little bit on one map and still did really well there. Mickman really only played Tracer when I saw him, did jump onto Genji for a round, and I mean, they did okay on it, but still, I think Tracer is their bread and butter. Kaori, on the other hand, only saw them play Symmetra. So when you see Kaori come in, you really have to expect to be seeing a Symmetra composition come out from them. And that is one thing that, against their game against Alternate, I feel like they kind of struggled going into that Symmetra mirror for the most part. They were able to, keep it close in some maps. You can go back and look at the stats, but it just wasn't enough to get them over the hump. Almost had a reverse sweep on New Junk City, but wasn't able to seal the deal there. But in my opinion, Hunter, and I kind of talked to you about this, I feel like this entire roster for InControl kind of revolves around how good Saint X is playing on that support line. Really only played Lucio in their first series against Alternate, but when they were putting up really good stats, getting in their name that kill feed a lot, their team was doing really well. They had two maps where they had over 20 elims. They won one, and that other one was that almost reverse sweep on New Junk City. Outside of that, though, they struggled on the other two maps, and their team kind of struggled around it. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this team play, especially around a Lucio player like Saint X.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like sometimes we underestimate the power of the Lucio because it's, hey, here's the fun guy that just speeds up the team and runs on the walls. it's not quite that simple, because we see, teams in the past that don't have the best Lucios in the world, and unfortunately they get killed early off in fights, and you kind of lose this ability to gain momentum, to have that extra ability to engage quickly in these fights, because, you could lose a DPS early on. It's like, okay, it's not necessarily done. We still have speed. We can end and try to find something. If you lose that Lucio, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. You almost have to decommit in that situation and kind of wait to see what happens. But speaking of waiting for things to happen, we're going to see these first pick coming through. InControl gets to select our first map, and of course, Dex, we know it's going to be Control.
Yeah, and I mean, InControl, when they went up against Alternate, remember, this was the only map mode that they actually won, and it was on Busan. So I would not be surprised if they want to try to bring us back to that here. They looked really well against InControl, and especially how they were playing with a deeper composition, I feel like that would be a smart pick for them here. Already have one series under your belt. Stick with the map that you won on there and started off here on Busan. However, taking some time to pick, so it might be a little bit of up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's gonna
be Oasis.
Yeah, there is the potential that it defaults to Oasis in this situation, and I'll talk about what I think might be happening at about 45 seconds if we're still looking at this timer, which we know that very well what that might mean. But either way, whether it is intentional or not, Oasis is just one of those maps that I feel like, it's one of the few that I talk about a lot, that all the points are kind of different in their own way. You go to City Center, it really falls into that dive category. But if you go to something like University, that's where we see the brawl start to come out here. And it's one of those maps where you could force something to happen, but more often than not, it kind of shows off the team's ability to kind of flex around really early on in a series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see so much different stuff come out here. Like you kind of already mentioned, brawl, dive, poke. You can even see a little bit of rush come out here. I mean, most control maps you can make that kind of argument or statement about and be true, but especially on this map in general, there is a lot more options for you to play aggressively into those brawl styles and really try to force it. There's really only truly maybe one point where you kind of have to gravitate towards a little bit more divey, but you can still definitely try to hard force it here. Boop Troop, though, gets ban number 1 here for heroes, so we'll be able to see what that is here momentarily. But it should be just interesting, because we were kind of surprised by the first bans we saw in our series on Wednesday. And I mean, even going back and looking at their first bans for InControl's game against Alternate, it was still some interesting bans that came out there.
Yeah, exactly. We're waiting for it to come through. My timer went to 0 for some reason. That was weird, but we do know the first ban in this situation. Yeah. Soj, which honestly, the way Soj has carry potential, it makes a lot of sense. It's just one of those characters you don't want to have to deal with right here, and I like the fact that if they are going to struggle to get the Symmetra, they're willing to save it for a different time, different place.
Yeah, and remember, kind of like how I mentioned here, Benevolence is a really good hit scan player. Played Soj for the majority of the first couple maps. Did go over the cast, Tracer a little bit here and there. But Soj is probably their main hero they want to stick with, and they did really, really well on it. So this might be a really good target ban out here, map 1, to try to force them onto something like Kaz, one that's a little bit more diveable, or, just able to collapse on a little bit better here. But right now, still waiting on the InControl ban. We won't necessarily know what it is until we actually go into the map here. But I mean, you leave tank wide open, you leave support wide open. I feel like I always say gravitate towards support here. It's an easy ban. I feel like it's always a safe ban to ban out one of those supports.
Yeah, it is usually one of those safe calls, and we've seen a lot that the support category really gets targeted in most of these maps right here. Obviously, there's so many DPS to be able to pick from, and I think tank has really entered that category as well. But with support, it really is a scenario where if you get rid of a specific hero, there's not something that can easily replace it. Like, oh, you ban out a Ramatra. Okay, we just play Orisa. Oh, we ban out Winston. Okay, we'll play Diva or Ball or Hazard. It's not always the same exact situation when you go, it's like, hey, we banned Juno. It's like, oh, we could play Lucio and speed, but it's not the same situation. It's not the same healing output. It's not the same anything. The only thing that really relates in that situation is the speed. But either way, in that situation, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a support ban, but of course, as you said, we have to wait for these lineups to finalize so we can see what it's going to be, which, again, still waiting to see things from InControl, but I'm sure we'll find out very shortly what the situation is.
Yeah, and I mean, as we kind of already talked about, again, Boop Troop, this is their first game of the season, and like we kind of saw with our series on Wednesday, some rust definitely present for both teams in maps one and maps one for both of them. It could be something where Boop Troop does really come out of the gates kind of slow here. And it's not necessarily what they probably want, but hey, like we said, Hunter, this is a lot of players that we have seen in some of the grassroots leagues like CGL, and I imagine a lot of them do have some cohesion or some, experience playing together. So I don't think it'll be as rusty as we really expect here, especially considering we've all seen these players for Boop Troop really shine on other teams in the past. InControl, though, it's going to be really interesting to see. They have that one game already down. It's going to be really fun to see how they come in here into their second game, looking to try to find that first victory of the season.
Yeah, and exactly, you want to find it this early on as well, because the sooner you get that first win, the sooner you're going to get that level of momentum and be able to kind of catapult yourself further. And for a lot of teams, that is kind of how it goes down. I mean, we've seen teams in the past like Shikigami that have rough starts to the season, but do manage to come back and, make it to the playoffs. But that is more of the exception to the rule than the rule itself. You obviously want to start strong. You want to give yourself leeway so where if you do have a couple of tough matches down the line, you're able to fall back on all the wins you previously had. But as we're still sitting here waiting for finalization, it is, at this point, I feel like it's worth noting, Dex, we'll kind of pull back the curtain just a little bit here. We haven't really had much of a response from InControl. They only have 4 players currently listed on their main lineup. They still have subs, so they definitely have players to play. The question is, honestly, at this point, is whether or not they're actually here, because at this point, it's going to become very apparent in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there's one player missing from InControl. I believe it is the tank that started for them last one, I believe, Key. But right now, we're going to see if one person gets brought in. Yep, there it is. It seems like we will have someone coming in here for InControl. Actually, it looks like we're missing a player from both teams at the moment.
At the moment, yeah, which, to be fair, if that does happen, I forget what specifically happens if that happens, because obviously if one team ends up going into a lobby and has more than the other, it defaults to them. But if we're in a 4v4 situation, there's a legitimate chance it might just let it play. But the problem is that InControl, everybody's clearly on because it's sending invites, but nobody is responding as of this moment, which is a unique situation that we are not really used to in this situation. As I'll show what the bans are just in case it goes that way, but
they have 5 minutes to connect here, so we might be here for a minute or a little bit here. But I mean, right now, Boop Troop does have 4 members here. We do at least know that I believe InControl's coach, Evasion, is in the lobby, so they do at least know. They do at least have someone here ready to go. InControl, though, I mean, probably going to try to rejoin as a team here if they're able to find that 5th player. But right now, it seems like they only had the 4 that are listed in that starting lineup at the moment.
Yeah, this is definitely a interesting situation, and just to quote someone in chat, Nian, have a feeling this won't be close in the next 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That might be the case indeed, because obviously if they don't show up within that span of time, it does become an automatic win towards Boop Troop, which obviously good for Boop Troop at that point. You don't have to do anything and you get a 3-0 win. But in my perspective, and I think we can say this personally from we have experienced in recent times, it is a lot better to go out there and actually full out win a 3-0 situation rather than be forfeited a win.
Yeah, I mean, Boop Troop, though, I feel like they would be okay with it. I mean, you start off 1-0 on the season, give you some confidence, even though you didn't play going into your game against Daybreak, who, again, was Dreamland from last season. A team that did really, really good, made it decently far in the playoffs. I believe, actually, they were one of those teams that got those promotion relegation games there, but ended up, I believe, losing out to Supernova. However, I mean, still, you take a win when you can get it, and especially this early on, I think you would love to have your record say 1-0.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, you want to say that no matter what, because at the end of the day, maybe you enter a situation down the line where that one win is the one that truly matters. But that's something that has to be seen, because there's about 2 minutes left on the timer as we speak. Again, just talking through the bans that do exist in case it does end up mattering. Sojourn and Doomfist not going to be available for this first potential map, I will say at this point. I was like, go ahead and cut it back over to us, we'll show our somewhat lovely faces. And, I mean, obviously, Dex, you hate to see it in these situations if it does come to fruition, but something we were very blessed to not experience when it came to last season, because I don't think we had an instance like this before. Can you remember?
I don't think we had an instance like this, but there were definitely times where we were the ones that messed up.
That is true. That is true.
But I mean, right now, InControl did make a map pick. They did make bans, so that at least lets us know that they are monitoring this game, and that they should have a team ready here. But only about a minute to go. I don't necessarily know what the case is. I mean, like I said, Evasion is here, and that is their listed coach, I believe. Yeah. So they have someone here in the lobby.
Yeah, it's like the coach is very much just here, so it's a weird situation, and there is always, with 45 seconds left, the likelihood that we have seen in the past where it's like, hey, maybe they're playing in something else. That's a possibility, but at the same time, I with everything that's happening here, I really don't think that's the case. They just played a game 2 days ago when they lost that losing effort 3-1 to Alternate. They clearly exist. They clearly have shown up for the season. But I think it's worth noting there's someone on this roster that did play in this game that isn't there anymore. And now it creates a very interesting precedent where obviously we can't make any assumptions on anything that has happened. But it is worth noting because at this point in time, the clock's about to hit 0.
5 seconds left to go here, and I mean we're gonna see what happens here. Time to connect, yeah. And nope, it is gonna be a forfeit here for InControl. So Boop Troop, they will get the win here. They'll go up 1-0 on the season and be credited for a sweep, which is really good. But InControl now, I mean, this is a concerning thing for them because like me and you were talking about before we came on, Hunter, and as we kind of mentioned a little bit at the start, this InControl team was a team that was very much on the cusp of making playoffs. Actually, wait.
What's up?
It's on hold. It's on hold now.
Oh.
I got invited back to a Faceit game, but it right now, looking at the page, it says it is on hold.
This is very weird. Okay, then we're gonna hold out really quick then, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna keep that 3-0 there very tentatively.
They have 5. InControl now has 5 on their Faceit page. I think.
Wait, what? Oh, wait, what?
We are back in business.
Let's go.
We are back in business.
Let's turn that 3 back to a 0. I was scared for my life. The bans will stay in place.
But now here's the other thing. Here's the other thing now.
Wait, they're restarting. They're restarting the picks.
They're restarting the entire thing. So they're making map picks again. But Boop Troop never got their 5th.
Yeah, to be fair, we're gonna go back through the process, ladies and gentlemen. Map pick is still the same. We are still going to Oasis to get things started. InControl, though, has the first ban this time around. So obviously, I don't think they're going to pick Doomfist. That was definitely a default pick from last time. So the question is,
Soj can stick around though.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Oh no, that was still Boop Troop Spec. Okay, me stupid, me dumb. But it's definitely not gonna be Doomfist. But what do you think it's gonna be, Spec? Spec? Oh my God. Dex.
Oh,
I haven't called you that in a long time. That's crazy.
I mean, Doomfist wouldn't necessarily surprise me much here, but I feel like that's not going to be the case. Like you said, that's the default one. Went straight to tank, went straight to the first tank you could pick alphabetically, which is Doomfist. I feel like they're going to go after probably a support here. Like I said, that's just the safe move to go with. But it's going to be interesting to see which one. Is it going to be Kiri? Is it going to be something like a BAP? Is it going to be something potentially like a Juno? Because that's something that InControl did not play at all in their first series. But I feel like Juno is starting to kind of slowly fall out of the meta here. You're not seeing a lot of teams really pick her anymore.
Yeah, that kind of has fallen out of the trend, it seems to be. But I'm curious to see what it will be. Because I really think it's probably going to be in the support category. At least that's what I would assume. Within this situation. But honestly, this early on, we seem to have those few picks that kind of just happen to come out early that are more so safe picks than anything else. But it's actually going to be Hazard. Yeah, that is an interesting one, but to be fair, with how much verticality there is on Oasis, I think this is a pretty good pick overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you go back to InControl's game against Ultimate, Hazard was something that really broke their team a little bit on Watchpoint Gibraltar, where they were trying to still run a diva that they played back on Busan and worked out very well for them. Hazard kind of just destroyed the diva and really forced a little bit of a mirror, and you could tell a little bit here and there that Key maybe wasn't necessarily comfortable playing the Hazard, or at least the entire team wasn't necessarily comfortable mirroring the Hazard here. So getting rid of the Hazard here, especially for, like you said, a very vertical map, does make a lot of sense here. But now, Hunter, we're 15 minutes late, but we are now here.
It took a hot minute to get here, ladies and gentlemen, but we have made it to the start. Hey, there we go. I'd love to see it, but we are in game, and of course, it's not every day we start here. I feel like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna take back exactly what I just said. I feel like every time I go to Oasis, I see this map start about like 75% of the time, maybe, but either way, I feel like one team being very honest about what they're running. The other team, though, may be running some shenanigans.
Mari asking because the Doomfist ban is not. These teams are here to have some fun. But coming out of the gate here, let's look at the lineups. Right now, Mari playing the Ramatra on the other side. However, for InControl, Key on at least teasing us with a Wrecking Ball, and now going over to Ramatra themselves. Coming into the series, Key did tell us they like playing a lot of Orisa, or that's kind of the composition we should expect from them. Didn't necessarily see it at all against all.
Well, once again, the Dishon mic has gone out at the beginning of the stream. But either way, fight is beginning. Key gonna get moved off to the high ground pretty immediate as Mari and Squad will start moving forward, trying to put everybody over on the side of InControl in a bit of a rough situation as they take over that corner slot. And all you can really do here is kind of relax, hang around, wait for your opportunity. Hopefully, don't get caught out as Mari again trying to go in aggressive, trying to make anything happen. Multiple sticks coming through, but nobody going down quite yet. It's actually Salmon who goes down first and foremost. At point will go their way, but Dex, it might not stay the way for long.
It's probably not going to stay that way for long here, especially if you can find one more pick here for InControl. It should be an easy point flip back over. Actually, no. Just Boop's going to give it straight back over here, but this is going to be one thing I'm going to say watching out here tonight, especially while Mickman is in. They are going to be playing by themselves so often. That's exactly what I watched them do a lot against Alternate, and led to a lot of openings for them in that series.
Yeah, 100% as Jeremy already has taken one down, and now punchy away goes Mari, getting bodies low, but Shadowcaster and Jeremy helping with the follow-up, eventually going to clear house as Mickman, last person standing, only 22% on the board as Ultimate's already heavily going to be online for both squads.
Bullet shot ready here for Jeremy, not that far away from full spawn, and double support ultimates ready here for Boop Troop. You're kind of lagging behind a little bit if you are InControl. You will have Kitsune Rush here, but you really need something else to kind of follow that up with, so you're going to want to wait. This gives Boop Troop the exact kind of situation we're looking for here, where they can play fast and aggressive early on, because that one thing I did really notice a lot against their series against Alternate. InControl, once they get a beat, they're not afraid to immediately use it and try to go on the offensive.
That's a lot of bodies in there, but it's actually nobody from the side that ends up going down, and now it is the struggle coming through from Buchu at 40% and counting. Beat has been used in response to questions whether or not Salmon wants to invest in the 4v5 scenario. If they can manage to get their bid back in the fight, I say 100% go for it. And Beat, again, being exchanged on the support ultimate state. It's now just Mari who wants to move through, trying to punish away at Benevolence, managed to do so. Constant here to help clear things away. Azura and Key eventually going to be taken down. Mickman does manage to live and take one, but it's not going to matter.
Mickman, though, they're going to struggle to get out here right now, especially while it seems like three members of Boop Troop is focusing on the Mickman, though. Like I said, we'll kind of be playing solo throughout a lot of this. They're not in their own spawn, though. That's the problem. However, because of this distraction, look at what's happening right now. InControl, they can just rush straight on the point, knowing Mickman has the focus of 3.
Yeah, but they still have to take advantage of this fact because unfortunately no one has gone down quite yet. Salmon and Mari are both low. One eventually gets taken out. Zero able to help out, and now without the tank there, it's a pretty interesting situation right now, but you still need to hunt down somebody because everybody is staying separated. Nobody is staying packed together, and it makes it really difficult for Key to actually hunt anybody down as 99 is going to tick over on the table as it's going to be Consta getting the touch, eventually forced off. As for the moment, Inc. trying to hold on to the point. Unfortunately, Jeremy being gone, but Benevolence clearing away with 2 as well, and InControl, well, they're going to stay just that.
And right there. They're going to find the final 2 pictures that are really in that fight. And giving up the key, I mean, they've been holding on to this Annihilation for a while now. Probably was a couple opportunities for them to use it, but smartly holding on to it. I don't expect Mari to stay on the Doomfist here. Yep, going right back over to the Ramatra. I like the play from them. Have a Pulse Bomb ready to go, but outside of that, really nothing. Right now, if you're Boop Troop, you're not really looking to maybe invest anything here early on, unless you have a good stick opportunity for Consta, but Mickman and them are going at it in that Tracer duel.
Yeah, and unfortunately got forced to use the recall early, and now Key wants to move in. InControl going to be clearing away once again. Now with 60% on the board, they're going to go and push these spawns a little bit. Nobody goes down, but with that hard of a push, this next fight, very realistically, should decide the round.
Yeah, and one thing I really noticed, again, with InControl against their series against Alternate, they are not afraid to necessarily push up a little bit too far in some cases, especially if they can back out. Right now, they're able to safely back out there, but Zero now in a bad spot.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb ready to go. Could hit Benevolence, but instead the recall is going to flip back over to Boot Troop. For the moment being, Body's trying to force their way over onto the points. Benevolence managed to avoid the stick, and now it may come down to Mickman to hit their own. Also going to miss, and now Saint is going to have to go in with this beat, with the aggression of their squad. Eventually going to go in and try to run it down this Bucho squad that has still managed to hang around, stay alive, and now Jerry needs to wonder whether or not to make this choice, whether or not to use this bolo shot as they're looking for the opportunity. Eventually throws it directly into the face of Benevolence, and Key is down as well. No one can retouch, and Boop Troop, it was a struggle at one point, but they will take our first round here on Oasis.
Yeah, and a good back and forth kind of round there for both teams. It just seemed like Blue Troop had a little bit of a better grasp on their composition, especially with the slight difference in it really only being that hit scan DPS. So the cast for InControl, the Freya for Boop Troop. I mean, Freya right now still does a stupid amount of damage, especially with the Tracer that we've been seeing from Consta and Mari, not afraid to be aggressive as well. You're able to clean up a lot of those take aim shots, so it's not necessarily a bad kind of thing coming out here. Benevolence, though, I mean, I was very high on them coming into this series. They had a really good series against Alternate, just wasn't able to convert it into a win here. But you're seeing some swaps come out. Zero now going over to the Baptiste. Didn't really see a lot of Baptiste from them in their last series, but it definitely was there. Mickman, though, only on the sim for TP out. Looks like you want InControl wants to kind of play aggressively here. They already are.
Yeah, try going for the boop there. Honestly, I don't blame Shadowcaster in the slightest, as now you're looking for the boop. You manage to get some people off the side, and it's Mari who, unfortunately, is going for a swim, as that's going to be an easy, quick fight here for InControl.
I talk about a bounce back kind of fight there for them, especially finding Stratocaster out there pretty early on does help you out a lot. It gets rid of speed, it gets rid of a lot of just zone or kind of area of effect healing there for Boop Troop. But right now, InControl, you're in control of the point here. You're not that far away from some ulti, especially Zero's damage, which would be huge coming up here early on. But now, again, they just want to take space, which is one thing they really like to do in their last series.
Yeah, 100%. You see them pull that off, and Stratocaster again going to go down early. Amarian squad has no choice in the scenario but to commit with how deep they're in right now. And unfortunately, it's just another scenario where it's not going to last long. Kido does go down, so it is a good pick. Unfortunately, unless Mari lives this situation somehow, it's going to be meaningless.
Mari not going to be able to live right there, and it seems like Boop Troop is going to back out on that. And one thing I want to say, just coming into this in the rest of the series, Saint X not necessarily afraid to be really aggressive on that Lucio, and especially when their last series against Alternate, I will. You can look at the stats. I will say, when Saint X is playing good, getting a lot of elims, the team is playing good as well. You want that from your Lucio, but Benevolence starting off with that eye.
Yeah, Bolo Shot pulls in a lot of bodies. Unfortunately, Jeremy ends up going down as a result of all that, but we're still beginning to trade back and forth. Mari believes they can pull this one back. Definitely is having a lot of damage, getting a lot of people low, unfortunately. Eventually drops in their own right, and again, InControl, keeping things squared as one more fight remains for Boop Troop.
And right now, Boop Troop, I mean, you only have the Kitsune Rush here. If you're InControl, look at what you have. I mean, you're about to have 4 really good ultimates. This should be your fight no matter what. You just cannot really fumble the bag here. Mickman looking for the Pulse Bomb here potentially early on, but still, InControl is really just has a firm grasp on the point right now. It's going to be hard for Boop Troop to really do anything.
Yeah, see that pressure in the back from Mickman, hoping to force Salmon to have to use all of their cooldowns early on. As a matter of fact, it might end up getting forced eventually. As with even with all that speed, you didn't actually see Butcher really move in all that far, and now with their ultimates out of the picture at all. Key is just going to move in and try to kill everybody, finish them off. Everybody is sitting desperately low. A beat going to be used in victory celebration as we're going to head to our third and final round over on City Center.
Unless Constant can do something right there, but Key will show him a swift right hook. Just end that round right there. And hey, like I said, after the first fight and now after this entire round, a good bounce back round there from InControl. They really did struggle at some points there on the first point of this map, and it was just a little bit of different compositions. I really thought it was the Freya that made a huge difference. Well, that round they didn't have to deal with the Freya. Jeremy kind of got shut down pretty early on, made the swap over to the Cassidy, and just wasn't able to really find their footing here. And now going into our final point, you see that Freya come back out a little bit of a better point for Freya. A lot more space, a lot more room for Freya to navigate in that sky. So it's going to be really, really good for them here. And right now I'm looking at Benevolence to try to shut them down, because if you can do that, you really did see a big correlation there where Jeremy was not able to find a lot of damage, and it ended up with InControl winning. But other than that, no big swaps. Mickman and Constant going to be on the sim here just for a TP out and then back over to the Tracers.
Yep. Completely makes sense. Both of them are doing what they can, not getting any massive sticks, but they are delivering a lot of that attention to the backline and pulling it away. But honestly, Dickman seems to be the better example of things at the moment. As Stratocaster, once again, unfortunately manages to go down first early on. But in this situation right here, Benevolence actually going to follow suit as Jeremy forced a bit of a rough situation. Just gotta stay safe for the time being. This point going to open up as you're hoping not to peek your head too much if you're saying zero, because the last thing you want to do is get caught out this early on in this situation when you are needed the most to keep Key up. Is Jeremy gonna get pressured out? It's the ports that are coming up big. But Dex, with Key going down right here and Stratocaster being forced to play Dead by Daylight, eventually it seems it's gonna go their way.
Yeah, and right now, if you're InControl, you're probably just looking to back out of this fight completely. However, some of them are still in too deep. Mari going to make sure to send Benevolence and Zero both back here. So Boop Troop going to be able to get the first cap here. And honestly, you already look at Salmon not that far away from a Kitsune Rush. Going to have it ready to go. Mickman does have pulse bones, so you'll have those pretty early on here. But that Kitsune Rush is a lot more valuable to Boop Troop than a pulse bomb here for InControl, unless that pulse bomb somehow finds 2 or 3. But it's going to be very difficult to do that into what Boop Troop is playing here. If you're InControl, you're just looking for something early, and I always say that, but hey, getting rid of someone early on has led to a lot of their fight wins.
Yeah, it really has. You see initial pressure on the point. Jeremy is up there sitting 1, but unfortunately, well, Mickman's trying to have a little bit of fun and get rid of him. Zira has unfortunately gone down. So now, already at that 40% marker, and it's going to keep on growing right here as at this point of Pulse Bomb not going to do anything. You do manage to get rid of Salmon, so you're able to kind of back out of here and stay alive. But unfortunately, they're going to be the only person staying alive. And even then, it's not quite a promise, but now that they're in the spawner, it will be.
Yeah, but these first couple fights here for Boop Troop have been executed very well. I mean, you still look at them here. 4 ultimates ready to go. They didn't invest any in that last engagement. And yeah, you could say the same thing here for InControl. They're coming up to their own ultimates. Hell, basically all 5. Stratocaster is the only one that really is kind of lagging behind at the moment, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, you still have 4 really good ultimates on your side that can end a team fight here pretty early on, and even if you have to invest 2 or 3, you're probably gonna get ultimates up on the other side.
Yeah, 100%, but lots of ultimates gonna be on the board here, most specifically 2 Annihilations ready to go as Benevolence pretty much gets hunted down on the spot. Kitsune Rush is going to be used here, and it might be more of an act of desperation than anything else, as both Annihilations are going to be coming off the top. Stratocaster ends up going down, not able to get that beat up online. Sainto is ready to go. It will come out on time, but not to be able to keep Key alive, unfortunately. And now it comes down to these supports to keep everybody going. Bet Benevolence back into this fight. Use this ult to this effectiveness that it can, but at this point, it's basically used to just solo Salmon. As you see Zero get away at the last second, cause a flip. But now it is a struggle of getting back here and forcing another fight. And unfortunately, Dex, it's looking like it might just be staggers at this point.
He's coming back on the D, but I don't think it's necessarily going to do enough here for them. And you do see Mickman and Sank back here, but again, you lose E. You're now just staggering and touchdown on the point, which I just don't think is going to work well in the long run here, Hunter.
Yeah, it just isn't. It's a really good solo overall, but that's going to be a victory beat right there. Taking away that first map, 100-5, and at the end of the day, we kind of had a different tale on every single map. The first one was super competitive. Second one really goes InControl's way. And Boop Troop, on this third and final point, really managed to pull it all together and make it happen. And I think part of it came from the fact that Mickman, it was a weird situation. Mickman was someone that kept targeting the backline. And I think that really worked. And it got to a point where they realized, we don't have to engage with this Tracer. We just need to go in there, make it happen, and it feels like they won all those fights because they simply said, McMahon, guess what? You don't exist. You're not here. We are killing your team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and McMahon, like I kind of said, you'll see them playing on their own a decent amount throughout this entire series, especially when they're in on Tracer. They were subbed in and out a little bit in their first series, where you would see a Symmetra come in for them instead when they weren't in. However, I mean, I said McMahon's going to be one of those heroes that, or one of those players you kind of see always kind of playing on their own. And I mean, they did really good that first map, 22-3. I mean, that is really, really good for a Tracer who, for the most part, was playing kind of a solo kind of playstyle. And it was really, really good. Least amount of deaths in the lobby. But still, Boop Troop, on the maps that they won, it was almost domination from them. That first one, like you said, back and forth between them, but I felt like that Freya provided a little bit more for them. And that Freya, again, that third point where they came back out, and I stressed going into it, they're a little bit more maneuverability, a bigger skybox, a lot more open space. That Freya was going to kind of rain in a lot of damage there, and that's exactly what happened, as Jeremy was such a contributor to their team.
Massive contributor. Now we're seeing what's going to happen, as we do know our second map of the series. InControl once again picks it, but we're going to be going over to Circuit Royale, which, after playing through Oasis, this is definitely a bit of a tonal shift right here. This is where you're going to see a lot more of the poke compositions come into play, but Brawl is not out of the question. We see a lot of these teams that come out with the Mei and just play these corners very dominantly with the Ramatra, and I think with the way that we've seen these teams play, at least one of them doing it wouldn't be a surprise in the slightest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here, and especially because, like you kind of said, Mei is an option here. We know we won't be seeing Venture at all, because that is our first ban for this map. And I mean, Venture being banned out here is interesting because I feel like Venture finds a lot of value really on the defensive side. Offense side does struggle a decent amount, but you just make sure that Mei's still gonna be available. Something like a Widow still gonna be available, because Widow is actually a one you see probably banned out here the most on this map, or hell, even a Freya be banned out here. So InControl didn't want to see the Rock Muncher here this map, not a big surprise. Boop Troop did make that next ban pretty quickly, so it's gonna be really interesting to see what they picked.
Yeah, obviously it has to be either a taker or support in this scenario. And you gotta wonder what you want to deal with in this situation right here, because you gotta think of what was the biggest threat, but you also have to consider whether or not that threat is actually going to be as viable on a map like Circuit Royale compared if you go to another map that plays a lot like Oasis. So you kind of have to balance those out and see what it is. I'm leaning towards that it's going to be something different than what we have seen within that first map, because obviously you could get rid of a Ramatra or get rid of a Mei and not have to deal with that situation, but at the same time that Ramatra might be a pick you want to save later down the line, where if you go to like a flashpoint or a push, where I think Ramatra can get a ton of value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you bring up a good point with that. I feel like Ramatra, this is a really good map for them. And both teams did show us that they want to play Ramatra at least a little bit here. And especially for InControl, they played a decent amount of Ramatra in their last series. Even though they told us that they really do prefer to play Orisa, it seems like Ramatra's kind of their go-to at the moment in Boot Troop. I mean, really good showing in that first one, especially with the Ramatra. Seemed like Mari was picking up right where they left off in a lot of the other leagues and games that we've seen them here. But I mean, I'm just looking again at the stats here. Boot Troop was a very consistent across the board here. Everyone had at least, Stratocaster only had 12 elims, but still, as support, you really don't expect to see a lot there. But just good performances all around here. But hey, ban number 2 here is actually going to be Diva, which, again, I think it's another great ban coming out here from Boop Troop. I mean, they know that Key does like to play Diva, at least a little bit, considering what they saw. I have to imagine they watched the alternate series. Diva being banned out here is really good, because it does really get rid of the chance to play dive, and really does force a Winston kind of play style if you do want to play the dive.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the one thing that's kind of really nice about Faceit, is that you can go back and you can look at all these codes. You want to know what your enemy that you're facing today just played 2 days ago? It is right there, ready to watch. So, like that, clearly doing the research of the situation right here, getting rid of the Diva. So it's obviously going to force a little bit of a pivot. And I think that pivot is going to go to something like the Aramatra or like the Sigma. Because if you're playing the Diva in these situations, it's not necessarily a scenario where it's like, oh, we're playing dive in the scenario, so we can just go play Winston instead. It's not going to be that simple, because one, it's Circuit Royale. If you play dive here, I wouldn't foresee it working out very well for you. I mean, this is either you go poke or you play heavy brawl in the corner, and there's not much of an in-between.
I mean, you could definitely try to play dive here, especially after you cap point 1 going over to point 2. Just try to break it up a little bit. You do see that a little bit here and there, but still, you kind of talked about it. Brawl poke kind of play style is the right way to go here. It's gonna be really interesting to see what these two teams play with here. Kaori though is in here for InControl, and I talked about it a little bit when Kaori came in their last series against Alternate. They only really played Symmetra. That's what we only saw them play. And this is a map where, especially in OWCS and a couple other, and even in Faceit here, whether it be Masters, Expert, Open, this is definitely becoming one of those maps where Sim is a very viable option for a lot of teams.
Yeah, and we can see the honest play right now is Consta currently playing the Symmetra here. And it's going to be interesting how it's done as Carry also has on the Symmetra, which honestly, this could be a swap specifically to come in and play Symmetra. That wouldn't necessarily be a shocking thing whatsoever, but at the same time, maybe it is just a TP to get someone like Benevolence into a better area a lot more quickly, but we'll find out momentarily what the case is going to be.
Remonstrance for both sides, kind of what we really expected to see. Zero going back over to the Baptiste, which you have to remember, University, where they played that map, was the map that the point they really dominated last time on Oasis. So I really like this, that Immortality Field's going to allow someone like Saint and Key to play very aggressively into this. And Kaori, I think they're right now looking for that TP opportunity.
Ooh, and Shadowcaster, again, has gone down early. Creates a rough situation for Mari, who just gets blown to smithereens, ladies and gentlemen. Now the aggression goes through from Carry and Squad, as that is a successful as the first fight as you can have.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, this is the biggest thing with Kaori playing the Symmetra, and you do see Consta playing as well, but it's going to be a little bit harder for Consta to find the value just with the beam, especially as Mari's going to be trying to take a lot of that space back. Kaori's going to be their biggest deterrent into trying to take a close fight here, because once that beam gets charged at the level 3, the arms going up in that Nemesis form can only do so much.
No, 100%. You see the pressure, though, pretty established here from Mari, who doesn't want to allow them to kind of keep holding on to this area. Eventually going to push the entirety of Boop Troop back, as now they have to go into this fight with a bullet shot ready to go. A little bit of pressure being delivered, and tries to solo wall and gets rid of Constant with a solo ult, and now with no Sim available, InControl begins to fall apart.
And I mean, the Sim, you lose Jeremy as well. I mean, you're going to lose Salmon right there. This is already this first point done and dusted. InControl again, I mean, they were able to bounce back pretty quickly on our second point of Oasis, and they're bouncing back here again pretty fast early on. And right now, I mean, Kaori, I did mention it a little bit, they kind of did struggle playing the Sim in their last series, but right now, this Sim is being a huge problem for Boop Troop.
Not a massive problem in this scenario. As you see them move forward now, they gotta create a different scenario here for them, because we know they struggle against it, and obviously we know InControl knows that they struggle with it, as they're going to keep on pushing forward with Key, and it's just going to keep creating a lot of problems. And the question is, X, what is the solution? Because at the moment, playing the Sim back, I don't know if that will be the solution.
I mean, you see ultimates coming out here now from Boop. They really don't want to give up more progress here, but InControl just respond with ultimates of their own.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. InControl's doing a really good job right now, kind of biding their own time as well. They're going to have a beat to be able to go in aggressive with Stratocaster has it to match, but with Key going down, they should be able to start clearing out this entire area. You don't want to let anybody survive, but for the time being, it looks like you might be getting 3 people get out, as they're going to try to hunt down Benevolence, and guess what? Works out beautifully, as now this is where you have to establish your hold on that upcoming corner.
Yeah, and this is what we see a lot on this map, especially from the defensive teams. Once they're finally able to stop the cart on second point push, this is such a difficult kind of spot to get back to the cart, because you really have to win a straight-up team fight to even get any progress going your own way here. You do have ultimates coming up here, though. That Annihilation, you have a beat. That bullet shot from Benevolence, so you really want them to be there to find a lot of burst downs, potentially get Stratocaster out of the way early on, which has been a common theme for them.
Yeah, and a nice little TP strategy. Unfortunately, it's getting disrupted immediately, as it seems like maybe there's a lesson learned from that first matchup running into the Sim, and is that don't let them do their thing first. Go into them. Take care of the Sim before you manage to get that charge, because if Consta's going to keep, not Consta, Kaori is not going to go in aggressively until it comes out, you might as well go early.
Yeah, and right now you look at both these teams coming up to all 5 ultimates on each side. It's going to be a full house here. And I kind of made the reference, who's going to have the aces high in this situation? I mean, everyone's going to have the same ultimates here. The only difference is going to be Kitsune Rush or Am Matrix. Which one's going to be able to find any more value in this upcoming fight? Because Hunter, I could really see this being a 10 ultimate fight.
Ooh, and that was a close one for Saints, who nearly got hit with the Ajax, but instead it's going to trade back and forth. Mari and Key both investing in their annihilations. Nobody going down quite yet, as both are kind of just blocking away, taking all the damage, and we're going to see the double down of investment as you're going to go in if you are Mari. Try to get rid of the symmetric carry, sitting super low, has a wall ready to go, trying to get rid of them, and the investment, it took literally everything in the kitchen sink, but it works out, and now all Bootroop has to do is just keep their bodies alive.
8 ultimates used in that fight, and Bootroop comes out on top. And really, no one truly died. It was just pressure forcing them back there. A really smart play by both sides. You will have the Photon Barrier, though, ready to go here for InControl. However, you're going to be walking into a Kitsune Rush for Bootroop, so you're really not walking into your most favorable position here. But look at Saint, already building up halfway to another beat. If they can get it up here quickly, it'll get really help their team out and finally get through this hole.
At 100% going to be pushing through. Finally, took quite some time. But even then, you're going to have that Kitsune Rush to do it. You're going to have the Bolo shot to do it. And right now, there's no ultimates on the board for InControl to make use of them. As Jeremy tries to find a little bit of value, forces out an Immortality field. And Kitsune Rush is now used. So now there's nothing left on the board whatsoever for both squads. And now they need to find one pick, or else this could be for nothing. But with Key going down, unfortunately, the rest of InControl is got the backup and try to keep as many bodies alive as possible. But Costa going in that aggressively might be a mistake.
Will find one, and Kaori barely being able to stay alive there is huge. But right now, if you're Bootroop, I mean, InControl, my bad, you have to play fast. You have this advantage. You're also going to have an ultimate advantage. There's going to be no ultimates ready here for a brief moment at the start of this fight for Bootroop. If you're InControl, both your support ultimates. We know Saint likes to use these feats aggressively. I would not be surprised if they use it very aggressively here just to build them some space.
Yeah, I mean, they double support ultimates. You have that right to use one aggressively right here, but you got to keep Kaori alive. Unfortunately, they let Kaori go down. It's such an unfortunate scenario. And now Mari's going to move in. Salmon manages to get a couple. Constant, Jeremy, everybody in the kill feeders with 30 seconds left on the board. It is not looking too grand for InControl.
Beat and Bolo ready here now for InControl. However, you look at the other side for Bootroop, especially with them playing far up here. I like this. You're going to build up the 4 ultimates this engagement. The only thing you really have to watch out for is Kaori throwing the TP2 point, which is exactly what they do.
Bevelous literally lives by the skin of their teeth there, and now they TP through, all bodies sitting on, only a wall remaining, but double support ultimates are on the way, and right now they just gotta commit to this point, get some bodies on. Nice stick right onto Benevolence, and Jeremy hoping to clear things away as Kaori hanging in the back line, hoping to find something. Unfortunately, nothing to be found, as it is just bodies staggering once more. And InControl, they had such a good start, but they're going to get halted just before that second checkpoint.
Yeah, I mean, still a good round there for InControl, but it started off really well and then progressively got worse. That's the problem. I mean, they came out and really dominated 2 straight team fights, looking like they were completely had this map locked down, but it just fell apart. And like I kind of said, once you're that attacking team, then you lose a fight going uphill here on point 2 push. It seems like all the wins gets taken out of your sails. You really don't have that kind of momentum to go anymore. And I kept on saying, all you really need to do is win one team fight and force that defending team back to their spawns, back inside the hotel, and you normally find a lot of value from there. If you lose a fight, just having the defense team play from the hotel means that you're almost there. But still, I mean, Bootroop played such a good defensive round, especially once they won that first fight, or once they finally won a fight, to really slow down InControl. And it just never really went back from there. Even at the times when maybe they were over aggressive and lost 1 or 2, they still played a very sound defense there. And if you're InControl, going back to the drawing board here on the defensive side, I mean, still, you could hold them on first point. This first point is very holdable.
No, it's 100% holdable. The amount of times that we have seen it end in 1-0 fashion, where one team gets held and the other just happens to hold harder, I can count that. It takes more than just my 2 hands to count the amount of times that I have seen that happen, not just in rank, but in games like this. So, we'll see what the case is going to be. Jeremy, currently on the Widow, waiting to see if Benevolence is going to pop their head out on top, and for the moment, it seems like it's not going to be the case.
I mean, they're definitely popping their heads around that corner. Jeremy, though, just to be a little bit of a deterrent to force them back in. Looks like they're going to be going to make that swap back over to the Freya. And I mean, Jeremy's been playing excellent Freya so far here, but right now, I like what InControl's doing. Just trying to keep that that space here on the card.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love exactly how that played that out. Zero literally gets forced into the worst situation possible, but we are still trading back and forth. Benevolence has managed to find one right now. Key eventually getting burnt away as Booster penciling there momentarily, but unfortunately, eventually will be burnt away. Or more so, I should say, that it is InControl getting torn down with Booster. Gonna start moving forward.
But if you're InControl, I mean, you almost got a minute out of that first corner hold. Not necessarily the worst thing, and this is a point where you can come back in. And a lot of times you do see defensive teams kind of just allow the team to push it up to the bridge where the cart is currently at the moment. However, I mean, you can still come and engage and still be at that same kind of point. So if you're InControl, you probably really like what that first point gave you. However, you're going to be lagging behind a little bit in that ult economy, which you kind of have to play very safe with at the moment. However, you look at Jeremy, they're in a really good spot and a really good spot to find a lot of good angles.
No, it's a brilliant spot to be in right now, and things are going really well. Benevolent's going to get burnt away super quickly, and now he just needs all the care in the world, as unfortunately, Saints in a rough scenario, and they are going to be burnt to smithereens. That is going to be capped, I mean, just about as quickly as, yeah, Mari finishes with the 3K right there, and now there's going to be about 5 minutes going into the second point to capture 83 meters.
Yeah, almost 5 minutes, and the biggest thing there is there's a TP that constant throughout there into that backline. Jeremy was in the backline that entire fight, pumping in damage, not being contested at all, and now, I mean, look at the aggressiveness coming out from Boop Troop.
Yeah, and it's working out. The guy rid of 2. Jeremy's in a rough scenario, sitting super low, will eventually be burnt away, but unfortunately, the rest of the enemy team is doing the exact same. Zero, though, does get a second kill. Unfortunately, Mari, again, is cleaning up, and now you get to take all this space and get all this meterage. Hey.
And Mari paying respects right there. However, I mean, I feel like this is a little bit of a misplay by them. They could send 1 or 2 people back to cart and just try to get it pushed up this hill, because this is what I was talking about. If you keep this defensive team in the hotel, it becomes harder and harder for them to really do anything, because this is such a hard choke for the defensive team to really break through.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be very quickly. Now you're seeing the aggression right out the gate here. Mari might be thinking of going aggressively in momentarily here as soon as they get a little bit of care to maybe end this thing. And you see it right there. The moment you see them go too far past, they go into the aggression. Beast being traded onto both sides as well. But Key has held on to their annihilation throughout this right now, but it might be too little. With Zira having already gone down, the squad being hunted down. Key might be holding it for Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, as they're eventually going to be taken down. And unfortunately, it's just Kaori and Saint holding on to the point. One person left remaining, and Key, the mistake of not using the annihilation, and Boop Troop go to match point.
And I mean, Han, this has been something me and you have talked about in the past, especially last season. Team of players holding on to ultimates. I mean, yeah, you could talk about maybe what would happen if that ultimate Kodo came out, but since it didn't, it's one of those what-if scenarios. However, I do feel like it would have helped him out in that fight, especially as the other annihilation had ended, that photon bear went away. He would have been able to find a lot of value right there if you were Boop Troop, especially in that situation. I felt like they kind of forgot how far they pushed that card. Just a little bit of a misplay there by them. I mean, a little bit of a misplay there by InControl. Boop Troop, though, up 2-0 in this series. I mean, this is exactly probably how they want to start off this season right now, especially with the entire team being rebuilt from the ground up, essentially.
I mean, that is essentially what's happened within this process, and now it's a rough scenario for InControl, which, to be fair, they have had their bright spots. They have been doing good things, but it feels like they have been shut down when they start to find any level of success, and now you're in a situation where you have to make something happen. You have tried your bread and butter. It's not working. Boop Troop have figured it out, and they're already combating it with their own Symmetra, with their own style, and unfortunately, InControl, as we saw previously, just aren't reacting well to it.
Yeah, and right now we already know what our third map will be. It is going to be Sarabasa here for InControl. Didn't play. I don't think they did play a Flashpoint against their series against Alternate, but they were instead taking us to New Junk City. So Sarabasa this time around. But right now InControl, I mean, I'm just looking at the stats here, and Hunter, let's just say it's not the best. I mean, a lot of 6s on the board for InControl, but not in the good way. And just a good performance by Benevolence playing the Freya. It seemed like they were really able to shut down Jeremy at times, but Jeremy just found so much more value on overall constant on the Symmetra as well, going up against Kaori, who, I mean, Kaori came out of the gate on fire playing that sim, was able to really disrupt a lot of the stuff with that attacking side for Boop Troop. But once Boop Troop, like I said, won that fight on the defensive side on point 2 push, it seemed like the entire map's outlook kind of flipped right there, and Boop Troop was firmly in control.
Yeah, that is just kind of what happened. We saw such an amazing start to the process in general. Unfortunately, obviously, it didn't end up staying that way. And obviously, when you're in that scenario, you want to root for them. You want to hope that they keep with that momentum, because we've seen times in the past where both teams finish that, and then we have that iconic finish, like that 4-5 situation or 3-4, whatever it may be. But now it's a rough scenario, because you had your opportunity, and unfortunately, Booptooth threw it directly back in their face, and now they're going over to the Saravasa, where it's going to play very aggressively. These fights, it's Flashpoint at the end of the day. You're going to take aggressive fights. You're going to take fights that are largely indoors. It is a bit more open than something like New Junk City, and I think even to an extent Atlas, but it's still going to play primarily Brawl and primarily Symmetra.
Primarily, yeah. So I would really expect to see Kaori stay in. If not, then you're probably not going to see Sim at all. Be back over to the Tracer, really, with Mickman coming back in for them. So there's still a lot that could happen here for InControl. But like I said, a little bit more brawly does allow Saint to really find a lot more value here. Like I kind of said, Saint, in my opinion, is the thing that really makes the biggest difference for InControl. When they're playing good, when they get a lot of eliminations, it seems like InControl is doing really good as well. They had 21 eliminations map 1, and that was a very close map. Only 6 this last one here, and they really did struggle playing that Lucio. It seemed like they were always kind of in the wrong spot at the wrong time. It seemed like the team just wasn't necessarily as coordinated as they really wanted to be, but it seemed like Booptooth at the same time was just causing a lot more problems than what we saw in map 1. But heading into Saravasa, I mean, I really do expect to see the Ramatras come back out here. Orisa, though, you could see come back out here. Remember, that is what InControl told us. They like to kind of play around. We haven't seen the Centaur just yet, but this is definitely a map where you could see it.
Yeah, you definitely could see it in this situation right here, and I am curious to see what ends up happening, especially when you look at the bans we have for the Cert and potentially flying out. But over to Ben really quick, Baptiste and the Freya being taken out in this situation right here, which honestly, no massive surprise between these two. I think we saw a lot of great play from both of these characters previously over on Circuit Royale. So both teams respectively not wanting both of these to be in the game, honestly, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, my bad. Freya being banned out here makes a lot of sense. Jeremy has been doing maybe a little bit too much on that hero. And Benevolence, like I kind of said, they seem to favor a little bit more Soj, Cassie than Freya in their series against Alternate, so they probably want to go back to that. They're going to force Jeremy over to that as well. And then Bat being banned out from Booptooth, I mean, this is really just a focus here on Zero, for the most part, who has been playing BAP and a lot of the times did provide a lot of good value for InControl, especially on the first map of Oasis, a little bit there as well on Circuit Royale. And getting rid of BAP here, I feel like it's just a good shout, because Immortality Field's still a very strong ability, and Amp Matrix does find a decent amount more value on Flashpoint than maybe on Escort.
You know, I would agree in that situation right here, and with it being Flashpoint, it's definitely unique in its own style. I think everyone still kind of had to figure out what this map type was really like when it first came out, because before it was like everybody was fighting everywhere, but then it became more dynamic. Okay, this is where we're taking fights, and then it develops even further than that. It's like we don't necessarily have to take the fights on the point. We can go up on these corners. We can fight realistically wherever we want to fight, so long as it stops the enemy from getting to the point. With it being now so long into the game to where it's normalcy, it is a normal mode, there's no more experimentation, we understand how it plays, everything should be relatively straightforward in how it is played. But that's what makes it so dynamic as a mode, is not every point actually ends up playing the exact same. That way you're not playing the same point. It's like, hey, you have to do this specific thing for all 5 points. You would say that these points, at least in some respects, play very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. But right now, we will let you in on why this map hasn't yet started. 2 players of InControl have yet to load into the lobby. Yep. I mean, it happens from time to time. Still has about 2 minutes to go for them to get in here, so they probably should. They have enough time to restart the game and get back in here very quickly. But, I mean, yeah, like you kind of said, Flashpoint, from its initial kind of birth to now, has really changed a lot. Like you said, people were taking fights whenever they could at the start, kind of slowed down, taking fights on points, and now you're starting to get back into that area where teams are really deciding, like, hey, we could take a fight here on the way to the next point to try to make sure we have an easy first cap opportunity. And I feel like a lot of teams nowadays are really going for that. They want to try to get the one up on the team, because that first cap is very important, especially if you can get some free percentage, even though you might end up losing the fight following it up, you'll gladly take the 20, 30, maybe even 40% that you get on these flashpoint points because, hey, remember, they do tick up a little bit faster than what you would expect on something like Control.
Yeah, having a 60% cap versus, 60% cap on Control is very different than a 60% cap over on something like Flashpoint. With Flashpoint, it is immediately apparent, hey, that is Final Fight territory. There is no objection. Hell, sometimes you might even struggle to go back and make a fair fight out of it at 60%, but with Control, you could make that Final Fight territory and set yourself up for as long as you realistically like, very comfortably. So obviously, it is more fast-paced in that nature, where if you lose that point, you realistically get, I mean, honestly, like 2 more tries to really go and get it done. That's just how it is. There's very little room for error on a map like Servasa and a mode like Flashpoint in general. But we do have everybody in-game, in lobby, so this third and potentially final map is going to get started as we're heading over to Servasa.
And right now, it's going to be really interesting to see what these two teams play. Again, we've only had, we had Tank Ban's map 1, map 2. This is the first map where that we do not have a Tank Ban. I would really just expect to see Ramatra again. I feel like that would have actually been a very interesting ban by one of these teams, just to get rid of Ramatra to see what necessarily other teams have to play, because we have seen Key show us Diva very briefly. That was. But we do at least know Key has played other tanks so far this season. But now, as heroes are going to be picked here, we're going to get to see here Ramatra for InControl. Mari, I think, might be teasing us here a little bit. But Mickman is in. That was one thing we really talked about. This is a good sim map at times. However, I feel like the Tracer is a little bit of the better option coming out of the gate. And you're going to see Symmetra just sort of TP out, and that's going to be about it. Other than that, I really do think we're going to have a little bit of a mirror match. Jeremy, though, on the Venture. Remember, Venture was banned out last map. Now that Freya's banned out, it'd be very interesting to see Jeremy stick with this Venture pick. I feel like Venture, this is one of Venture's better maps.
You know what? I would tend to really agree in this situation right here. Venture has gotten a lot of value as of late as well. And on a map like this, when there's so many corners and crevices to kind of play around, definitely is an option to pull out. But of course, Jeremy means they may have to potentially contend with somebody like Mickman, which is going to be hanging around causing chaos, but they're going to go in with some aggression. Bit of a rough scenario as they're going to switch sides, but it doesn't stop Jeremy from getting rid of Benevolence and causing a little bit of chaos already, as eventually making their way onto the scene is going to be Mari, and unfortunately, again, not going to be the start you're hoping for, as Boot Troop picking up where they left off.
Yeah, and right now, this composition, Mari finding 3 to end that fight, but this composition for Boot Troop, I feel like if you're in control, you really have to make some swaps. You already see that Benevolence going over to the Cassie Flashbang, going to be able to stop all those movement abilities, especially from something like a Doomfist. You want to get rid of that and be able to potentially stop Jeremy from going burrowing into the ground here. But you need to find something here early on, because look at how far Boot Troop is already pushing up.
Yeah, ends up being a good pull down right there, but now you have to try to find somebody and separate them because there's so much damage being dealt. And Mari's actually going to get rid of Benevolence, and now, I mean, this is just the strategy. Go all in. Go and try to get rid of them as fast as humanly possible. And now we're back to that 60% argument now, where you're losing body after body. And at this point, if Saint doesn't get out of here alive, I mean, you're even considering if you can even get a touch here, but Milkman has it set up.
They might go for a touch, but Mari is in their spawn. So I don't think they're going to be going for a touch anymore with Benevolence dying there. So actually, no, there is a touch coming out from
I would have waited. I would have waited much longer.
It does actually buy them time, because look what they did. Boot completely fell back, and there's still an opportunity here now for InControl to do anything.
Yep, City Rush is being used here. Does have it ready for Salmon. Just waiting for that opportunity. Wait for it to run out. They're trading back and forth. No trading of the tanks, as both are very much alive. Mari does have that get out of jail free card right now, as Consta has the ability to hit their own shots, but it's just not going to be necessary. They're just going to clean this up beautifully. They don't have to use the pulse bomb. They only have to use the City Rush back, and now it's going to be a 4-4 ult trade going into this next point.
Yeah, I mean, Consumer Rush, only thing used by both sides there, so not really much to really stress about if you're either side here. Like I said, gonna be 4v4 with ultimates coming up. But right now, I mean, if you're looking at just sustainable ultimates, I think InControl has a little bit of the better ones. However, on the other side, Boot Troop, they have they have the ultimates that are all about in the moment kind of ones. They're going to be looking for all the damage they can possibly early on, and hey, you already see 2 coming out, and they're finding value.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's kind of worth it. You take a 2-for-1 trade right here. You manage to clear it out. Key obviously not going to use the Annihilation. Will slowly be burnt away as you're able to take that point if you're Boot Troop. But now you're in a scenario where you're going to have the beat for the Annihilation, but that is realistically your only tool.
Yeah, but right now, I mean, you do have the tools here right now, if you are in control, to just try to get a foothold in this series and just in this map in general. You need to be able to win a team fight here, because if you lose this one, especially with the ultimates you have, you're going to be starting to get into those spots where you're going to be playing really desperately.
Yeah, both beats very much ready to go as Saint I'm trying to hold out on it. Pulse Bomb going to miss here, and now there is just a beat ready on the line. Nice move over on Jeremy, and the beat does not come up online. Saint nearly gets hit with the Ajax, but barely manages to stay alive as they're going to go all in on Salmon, forcing them to hit the TP, going to go all in to try to take care of them. It's literally a hunt to get rid of the Kiriko, but Salmon's doing a great job of hanging around, staying alive, TPing around, but eventually Point is going to flip over, and now you're trying to keep bodies alive if you're Butcher, but unfortunately that is failing.
Like I said, that was a very important fight there for InControl. They desperately need to win it, because 67%, you basically would have been giving the second point over them for free right there. And hey, you only invested beat. You still have Annihilation. You have a Deadeye. You have another Consuming Rush. Granted, Boots has the same thing here, but you have ultimates right now that could even up this map for you, and you really need that here. You need to get some kind of foothold back in this series. Winning the second point would exactly do that right now. But honestly, if you could win this fight early on, it would be the thing you're really looking for here.
Yeah, Incineroar's ready to go. You do have a Deadeye right around the corner. Mari sitting super low, tries to find the punch. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out. Now with 60% and counting, you gotta try to keep bodies alive. Unfortunately, with Jeremy down, Consta the only touch, and now InControl gonna go aggressive as a retouch here is gonna be difficult, but I don't know.
Consta could be the only one that gets the retouch here, but it seems like they know that Consta could be going for it. But right now, I mean, again, a one ultimate trade there for each side. If you're InControl, you really like that. A touch will come out here for Consta, but right now you have still the Annihilation, but you get rid of Consta early on.
Yeah, unfortunately, you go for that pick right there, and now you're going to risk the ult to go in, but you still have to go and touch the point. They're barely going to make it back in time, and now I feel like investing more might be a bit difficult. Big punch, though. Nickman still manages to get rid of Jeremy, though, and that was the worst-case scenario, as this should be a one-for-one trade now with Salmon there, just not there quite in time, as it's going to be the stall, but inevitably, we're going to tie this one around, as, I mean, that also built up a lot of ults, and that's going to get Zero to this next Kitsune Rush.
Zero next Kitsune Rush. You still have Key holding on the Annihilation, and Saint does have the beat here ready to go. I mean, you look at the other side, the only thing they're really going to have early on here is that Tectonic Shock from Jeremy, which you could just kind of beat out. Not necessarily the best case for you to do it, but it could be something that you do here if you are in control. And right now, though, you already see it. BoopTube does have the control of the point. It's going to be hard for BoopTube to really get anywhere close to it without investing in ultimate, which, I mean, they have shown us in the past they're not afraid to engage early on or invest early on either.
Yeah, and you're watching them watch very carefully for Jeremy, watching every hook and crevice, trying to move in as you're going to try to go in and punch away, and Mari just gets annihilated. That is a very unfortunate way to lose the fight, but now this is InControl making the adjustments and making the appropriate choices that right now are causing a lot of problems here for Butcher.
Yeah, and right now, InControl, they can just win a team fight here. I mean, you already see 25% in counting right now. Zero has to get out. They really do. But the Annihilation might honestly have to come out now. That's exactly what's happening. Yeah,
and Stratocaster does have a beat, but unfortunately, just really can't get it out. You couldn't risk it in that scenario. You can't lose that beat. So unfortunately, it's going to go down. But now, you just have the beats to match. But unfortunately, they still don't win that ult trade.
And look, Mari got off the Doomfist. They realized that the Doomfist was not going to work anymore as Benevolence went over to something that could really slow them down. Mickman went over to the benches and really slowed them down as well. I like the swap from them, but it's a little bit too late here. You're not going to have Annihilation ready to go here anytime soon. Key, though, just use their Annihilation. However, Deadeye beat ready now for InControl, and you're in Final Fight territory already on this point.
Yeah, 100% point by Zen, and yeah, I have some questions as well about that one. We'll talk about that one momentarily. Stratocaster does go down, so there is no beat, which means this isn't quite over, but now with Saint going down, 99% on the board. Is everyone going to be cleared away? Jeremy got rid of 3 at the end of the day. Conta does go down, but Mickman just straight fall off?
They tried drill dashing to the other side of the backline, and I think they just barely missed. But right now, I mean, that does hurt them. I mean, you look, Deadeye beat ready to go here for BoopTube. You only have a beat ready to go right now if you're InControl. I mean, you're going to have to play aggressively here, which is something they've shown us all series on, but that Deadeye for Constance is going to slow them down a lot.
I mean, that's beautiful what I just saw on the side room there. The Ventures going at it. Consta, though, is going to trade out. big boop, but the rollback right there is now Stratocaster in a bit of a rough scenario. Mari might be forced to invest this Annihilation shortly right here. Key doesn't quite have theirs online, and now the moment of truth is coming by. You've got to get rid of Key if you want any chance of pulling this back. Unfortunately, the team is dying around them. Using the Annihilation at this point is not a worthwhile investment. Jeremy back onto the point is just going to be a stall method. No one is even close to retouching.
I mean, Jeremy's going to stall there. It's going to flip over. And yeah, I don't think you're going to see Stratocaster get back here in time. So now InControl goes on to map point here, which, hey, they need this to keep the series alive. It does seem like BoopTube's going to be able to get set up on point here early on, which, hey, they were able to do that last time as well. It didn't end up working out for them. You have Annihilation, though. You have your own Tectonic Shock. You're in a good spot. Annihilation not necessarily ready just yet for InControl, but you do have that Kitsune Rush. And Benevolence not that far away from the Deadeye. You could see him play fast here.
Yeah, you're going to see some separation and now Annihilation. This looks like it was born for it, but Mari's going to hold out on it. And the Ramachas love dying without using the ults right here. Could have kept them alive, but they're to see whether or not they can win without it being active, as Zera has been extremely active. Stratocaster being hit around like a pinata, but is going to stay alive, as eventually Saint going down means BoopTube should be set up in good territory to take this point away.
They're going to be able to, but those couple picks that we saw come out there from Zero really do make it interesting, because they can come right back in here pretty quickly and try to take a quick fight, which is exactly what they're going to try to do here. They have ultimates ready to go. They're about to have 4, so they are in a really good spot, and Mari already low.
And Mari is going to have to go aggressive here, I think, with Annihilation as soon as this runs out. But you see them backing up. Jeremy doesn't mind the space, so they don't respect that space that was kind of taken away from them, as now Mari just kind of has to hold on to the point, trying to pull down. Nice little put on there, and now the Annihilation. I'm waiting for it to be popped. It is not popped, though. Mari wants to hold on for the best case scenario, waiting for the perfect moment, but I'm telling you, there is no perfect moment, as Consta unfortunately going to die with the ult in hand, and unfortunately they're investing everything. But the thing, Dex, I'm not sure what to say here, as eventually this point is going to flip over. It's good stall, but they threw 2 ults into a fight that unfortunately got next to nothing.
I mean, they bought time though. 65% is nothing to scoff at there. That's basically still one fight territory if you get a fight to go your way in the point cap. You have Annihilation, you have Beat. You're still holding on to the Annihilation for the other side, but Beat's out. Kitsune Rush is out. Yeah, you have a Deadeye right here now for InControl, but you have the ultimates now for Boop to still play aggressive with that Beat and with that Annihilation, especially with how close quarter or close together you see InControl playing.
And you're going to see Mari pretty much match the Annihilation around the corner. Deadeye going to be held by Benevolence, as you're trying to keep it alive if you're Mari. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen, so it all ends up doing is kind of just stalling that out further, which in this scenario, not what you want, but bodies are in a weird area. Benevolence and Zero, unfortunately, get separated from their squad, and while Saint manages to find one, it's not going to be enough to pull it back, and now 65% on the board. Still time for another touch from InControl.
And they got the ultimates out that I was talking about. I mean, you got out the Annihilation, you got out the Deadeye from InControl. Yeah, you ended up using your 2 ultimates, your own Beat, your own Annihilation, but now Tectonic Shock ready for you, Tectonic Shock ready for the other team. You're going to have Deadeye ready to go at some point. Hey, but there's no Tectonic Shock from Mickman anymore.
Yeah, you see the bit of the separation there. Saint from the rest of the squad. Saint might be able to get the touch. In fact, will get the touch. Question not whether or not they can get a second touch and if they can even follow up on that. And the question is, there's not. So now we're going to go to a 5th and final point, which could potentially decide our series.
And right now, I mean, if you're InControl, you're probably not happy to just go into the 5th point. You really want to lock it down there. But Tectonic Shock out early, and we talked about taking early fights here.
Yeah, and unfortunately it doesn't find a whole lot of value, but still, it has caused things to kind of mesh around, act a little differently. Mari gets forced back into the fight, and now you're going to see this Consta trying to find something. It's going to cause separation. Nobody goes down, though, so a couple of vaults kind of just go down and pause to prolong this right there as you try to push Jeremy a little further in, and it works out brilliantly. And now, it feels like there's not a lot you can do. You could continue rush, but you know it's going to get matched, so you're kind of forced to sit back and wait. But they are going to continue rush back, and it's going to get copied. You have to stay on the point. If you're Mari, unfortunately, they get off momentarily, and now this feels like a situation where you've got to try to come away with some kind of win here. You get Saint super low, but you've got to you're getting close, but you have to find the cigar, and eventually, Dex, it looks like they're going to be able to.
The biggest thing is Jeremy coming back into the fight. I feel like we saw InControl there kind of forget they had flipped the map. So when Jeremy came back in, they were in the back line almost immediately, and you saw Zero get taken out. Saint X was also down to a low enough health to where they were easily cleaned up right there. But you now look at the ultimate. Deadeye, Beat, Annihilation about to be ready here for Boot Troop. You have Beat, Deadeye, Annihilation ready to go here for InControl. InControl, they have to kind of play fast here, but they don't want to invest all 3 of those ultimates into one fight because you know you're just going to end up seeing the same 3 ultimates in the next one.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to be mindful. You could use all 3 and win the fight, but then you're kind of screwed for the coming fight right here. You see them rotating on the backside as well, but you see this, the moment they do that, they start putting bodies on the point. They force them to have to drop back down and get separated away. Saint, though, separated, not able to use the B in the scenario. Now it's 60% and counting. You need a quick reset, but he at this point might have to just simply commit, and they will, and Benevolence is in the same exact area. B going to be used, thrown around, and now Saint and McMahon only touches available, and it is getting desperate.
Zero gonna die right there, and now who is going to be the touch for
nowhere close.
Nickman's nowhere close, but you do see Saint right there, so you could be looking for the speed in. Someone has to get touched. It will be McMahon. You do have Beat here right now for Saint. They're gonna use that just to make sure they keep the stall alive.
Yeah, it's gonna separate, but they keep them alive, and now Mari Salmon going all in. They want to end this series right here and now, and it looks to be the case, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy clearing them away. It is just 1-0 left. Unfortunately, the only 0 is the 1 on the final score, as it'll be a 3-0 in favor of Boop Troop.
And hey, this is what we talked about coming in for Boop Troop here. A new team, tried a lot of players, kind of struggled last season here in Faceit Masters tier. And I mean, they even talked about like trying out a lot of players. They were in those promotion relegation games to drop down to Masters. Expert. This is a new team. This is exactly the start they want. This is a team that, like me and you said, Hunter, have seen a lot of these players in some of the grassroots leagues. This would not surprise me. This Boop Troop team is going to be one of those teams that is going to surprise a lot of people here. InControl, though, this is not the result you were really looking for after a really good series against Ultimate. This was still a good series here against Boop Troop, but you were never able to get over the hump. Yeah, you looked very improved as every map went on. Maybe not Circuit Royale. Circuit Royale, you really started off hot and then kind of fell apart. This map, though, of Sarabasa, you got better as the map went on, but I think Boop Troop, they made the right swaps, they made the right adjustments to really be able to find everything they need to do here to complete this 3-0 sweep and get their first victory of the season.
Yeah, no, that's the way you want it to happen, and we were dangerously close to being a situation where this might have happened anyway, but that's what I was talking about earlier on before the match truly began, is you rather take a clean 3-0 from winning rather than a forfeit, because it proves you can come away with these 3 maps. It proves that you can adjust and take advantage of the weakness of another team, and that's what you have to do in a game like Overwatch. What you have to do in almost any esport out there. So Boop Troop, obviously it's a great adjustment by them. It's a great way to start the season with their very first win and their very first game. I mean, in comparison to how things went last season, geez, ooey, it feels like it's been a long time. It's already a big improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. But right now, I mean, InControl, they start 0-2 this season. Not necessarily the start they were looking for here. There is some bright spots. So we did mention it a lot throughout the series here. But they just need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit here. Go back to the VOD, go back to the labs, and just kind of work out some stuff. Because there was stuff that worked, and there just was some stuff that they struggled into in their 2 games this week. But this one here, Boop Troop, like I said, they just had every answer for InControl. When InControl seemed to start to get the momentum back, especially you can go look at the start of the start of Circuit Royale and Sarabas's point 2 and 3, where once InControl won those fights, they looked pretty confident in themselves. They were able to kind of always be in the right spots. Boop Troop came back in, though, took that momentum away, and that's something that you really want to be able to do, especially early on here with these games. You still have a lot of these teams trying to find their identity, their right kind of play styles. Boop Troop, with this 3-0 victory, going to be able to move on to their next game against Daybreak. Remember, that's Dreamland, one of those teams that played in those promotion relegation games. They're going to be able to carry a lot of momentum into that one tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be a really interesting matchup that we're going to be able to see, because at this moment we do know that Shikigami and Daystar are playing right now, and currently it's a 2-1 in favor of Daystar. Yeah, so it's a little back and forth right now.
Saying Daybreak.
You said Daybreak. I'm saying Daystar. Oh,
I said Daybreak.
You did say. Oh, so am I wrong or are you wrong? I'm not sure. Actually.
I'm probably wrong.
I think you are probably wrong, and in fact, the thing has the name changed yet. I don't think it has changed yet. Either way, it doesn't quite matter. Actually, you know what? It has. And you know why? Because that game just ended. So, either way, I mean, just talking about the games that... Yeah, Daystar. The games that are still going on, though, just a quick little talk through right now. TFTW currently up 2-0 on Hivemind. Midori is up 2-1 on Amplify, who Amplify pulled out a really good win to start the season against Shikigami. Iliad Artemis is up 2-1 on Anomaly, who Anomaly, they had a really, it felt like they had a somewhat strong start, despite things not quite going their direction. And then Extinction Zero and Nightmare Rotation going at it, but Rotation is currently leading it 2-0 right now. But that means there are some games that did finish early, which I'm trying to...
Biggest takeaway so far from just these early games here, especially this week. Granted, it is week 1, but a lot more sweeps than what we saw in the first 2 weeks the first 2 games last season, which is a big shock to me considering how competitive this entire tier was. However, I feel like right now you're still running into the same thing which I talked about here with InControl, where the first 2 games it's just a time for these teams to really find out a lot. Then you have a couple days to go back to the drawing board, scrim a couple times, get a couple VOD reviews in, and be able to hone in your kind of play style and what you really want to play here. Yeah. But right now, still a lot of these teams, not necessarily surprised we're seeing some teams that are 0-2, but there are definitely some, there definitely are some surprises with some teams that are 0-2.
No, it really is a surprise right here. I think one of those examples is Shikigami right now, who is now 0-2 after that. Even down mid being 0-2 is also shocking. This is one of those, they went top 3, by the way, and they fought hard against a lot of these really good teams. And I don't know, it's definitely a bit of a shocker. Obviously, Dreamland, formerly Dreamland, but now, Daystar and obviously Young and Beautiful, they were the top 2 teams at the end of last season. Right now, with the way they're playing, they might be looking to stay in that position still, which, with the way we saw them and the way they have kept the rosters together, that really shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody who has watched the last few months of play.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, good start to a good start here for us. With Faceit streams here again. A lot of good starts for a lot of these teams. It's going to be really interesting to see going into next week. Every team will have 2 games under their belt to see who really improved and who just kind of keeps their pace going here. Because, hey, you already see Alternate Hive Mind starting off 2-0. That is exactly how a lot of these teams want to start off. Hot start early on. You can kind of stumble maybe a little bit later on, but you know that you at least got that hot start.
Yeah, 100%. But of course, we're going to figure out what we're going to be doing for it next. We do know one game for a fact that we're going to be doing, which is going to be that rematch from the grand finals of South America Masters last season between Zocorp and Factor X. We know that's going on Tuesday at 7:30 EST. As for our other games, obviously, we'll be coming back around for Wednesday and Friday for the NA Masters games from there. We have yet to decide what they are. We have a couple of ideas, though, but obviously, we'll be hashing that out, and just make sure to look out for social media, the ones below here, the one over here as well, about what that schedule is going to be so y'all can keep up with what's happening. But with that being the case, we're going to send y'all on the way. Please make sure y'all have a great Friday night. Keep supporting Faceit Masters here. Keep supporting Faceit here and all these teams in general, and support all the co-streamers that are doing an amazing job showing off all these amazing teams and players. And with that, we bid you adieu, and we'll see you next time.